Ms. Collins, you claim in your papers that you were struck on your left side
Yes.
by the defendant.
Absolutely, I was struck by my left side.
And was a body on the scooter
Absolutely.
when you were struck?
Absolutely.
No question in your mind?
Absolutely it was. It felt like a train hit me.
And you went over the front of the bike, is that what you said?
I went over the front of the bike with such an impact that the front of the bike handlebars snapped. That's how hard it was.
When you arrived, sir, Mr. Collins, when you arrived, did you see where the bicycle was?
The bike was in the middle of the lane in front of her, and she was behind the bike.
And where was the scooter?
The scooter was right in front of the bike. The scooter and the bike were locked up. The fender and everything was all twisted up. The fender was all mangled.
And where was the scooter?
The scooter came from his lane over into her lane, and that's where it hit her on the side of her shoulder.
And you claim that when you jumped off, you deliberately left the bike.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not really saying that you're not at fault.
I don't believe that I'm 100% at fault.
You say that there is a percentage of fault that falls on you.
Yes.
Well,
All right.
I have a
Ask
question,
your
though.
questions.
I can kind of understand that if he bailed into the lane that you were in and that you essentially ran him over, I could see why your body would go over the bike in the way that you described it. If he came at you from the side, how did you go in front of your bike? You would literally just slide over to the side.
When I was going, I seen him coming from the left.
So you do see him coming then?
If we hit like this, that would have caused me to flip over my bike, but it wasn't a direct this type of angle. It was more of from the left angle.
Which is why I still don't get how you tumbled over your bike. But what percentage of fault would you attribute yourself?
I would say it's 50-50.
How is it 50-50, sir?
Well, I fell.
You were lighting up a cigarette. You didn't have your hands on the handles.
And laying in the middle of the road.
On the opposite side. So how is it 50-50?
I was already on the ground. This is where I'm saying that her fault is coming from.
How? She had no reaction time.
I think she did have reaction time. I think she had a proper amount of time.
Proper amount of time.
If she was paying attention, because I was on the ground already, and I was in like almost a push-up position, starting to get back up already, and that's when I got run over.
Are you saying she was on the bike when it ran over you?
Yes.
That's not true.
All right, we're going to excuse the parties while we deliberate in this matter.
This courtroom is now in recess.
Okay, there's some question about how this accident happened, where you have two people who have completely different versions of what happened, but I still come to the same conclusion. It was the defendant's fault. By admission, he was lighting up a cigarette, didn't have full control of the scooter, fell in the plaintiff's lane, and he got run over. I truly believe that the defendant's version of what happened really was what happened.
I do too.
Because it just doesn't make sense how the plaintiff, not to downplay her injuries, but for her to say that she basically flew over her bike makes no sense when you're saying that he came from the left side. So it doesn't make sense, but still not her fault, his fault, and I would say that he's liable.
I agree with the verdict. I don't necessarily agree that it couldn't have happened the way the plaintiff described it. You have to look at the extent of the injuries of the plaintiff to assess the impact, the momentum that caused her to sustain those injuries, I believe, could easily be as a result of a body being on top of that scooter when the initial impact occurred. That's my perception.
I think it's precisely because of the extent of the injuries that I don't believe her version of events. If he just bumped into her or came at her going 5 to 10 miles an hour, that's not going to cause the type of extensive injuries that she would have.
He came quickly from his lane into her.
But who was the most consistent in their stories?
Right.
The defendant, from the very start.
Yeah.
1 minute she's like, I don't know where he came from. Then she was like, I saw him coming from.
Okay, that's your
which is-
version. It
I
has
think-
nothing to do with the verdict.
I do believe she bears some portion of the responsibility, but such a small portion that it wouldn't change the verdict. I believe that what happened was she wasn't paying attention, and there was a guy on the ground, and she didn't see him, and she ran over him. That still makes it overwhelmingly his fault if he was lighting a cigarette and it caused him to crash in the middle of a busy roadway.
Yeah.
There's still far more negligence on his part.
Yeah.
That leads me to conclude she's entitled to the full $5,000. So even those of us that might attribute some limited responsibility to her, we all believe that his responsibility is at least $5,000.
Okay,
Good.
done. We have a verdict.
We do.